My husband had been dead for 6 weeks. When his best friend stood up at a child's birthday party and announced that her son was carrying his bloodline, she didn't whisper it. She didn't pull me aside. She raised a glass, smiled, and said my husband had left half my home to her child. And everyone turned to look at me. They expected a breakdown. What they got instead was patience. Before I tell you what happened next, you should know who I am. My name is Avery O. I'm not loud. I'm not dramatic. I don't chase attention. I work as a claims processor, which basically means I read the fine print, people, hope no one knows. I've built my whole life around details, around documents, around proof. And 6 weeks before that birthday party, I became a widow. I wasn't prepared to fight anyone. I was barely prepared to get out of bed most mornings. But what Paige didn't understand was this. She wasn't trying to fool a grieving woman. She was trying to fool someone who lives and breathes paperwork. And that was her first mistake. When Nolan died, the house didn't feel empty. It felt suspended, like the air itself was waiting for him to walk back in and laugh at how dramatic I was being. One minute he was here teasing me about reorganizing the pantry, and the next, I was identifying him in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and silence. Grief doesn't hit like a storm. It settles like fog. Heavy, blinding, constant. 6 weeks later, I forced myself to attend Luca's first birthday party. Paige insisted I come. She said Nolan would have wanted it. Paige had been his best friend for years. Loud, charismatic, always inserting herself into our lives with that overfamiliar laugh. I didn't want to go, but grief makes you compliant. The party was bright and crowded. Balloons everywhere. Sugar in the air. People trying too hard to be cheerful around the widow. Then Paige tapped her glass. I have something important to share, she said, her voice trembling, but not from sadness. From performance. She looked straight at me. Luca is Nolan's son. You could hear the helium balloons shifting in the silence. And Nolan made sure his son was provided for, she continued, holding up a folder. He updated his will. I remember the way my hands felt. Cold, numb, steady. She said Luca was entitled to half my house. And Nolan's Jeep. People started whispering. And then, the worst part. Nolan's mother, Rhonda, covered her mouth and started crying. A grandson, she whispered, like it was a miracle. No one looked at me. They looked at Paige, at the baby, at the drama. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Because 2.5 years before Nolan died, he had a vasectomy. I drove him to the appointment. I held his hand after, and I filed the insurance claim myself. I'm a claims processor. Paper trails are my comfort zone. So when Paige dramatically handed me a copy of the updated will, I didn't explode. I smiled softly and said, "We'll let the court handle it." Her eyes flickered. Just slightly. That was the first crack. 3 nights later, I opened Nolan's fireproof safe. We hadn't touched it since before the funeral. I didn't think I could handle it. Inside was the real will. Signed. Witnessed. Properly notarized. It left everything to me. No amendments. No secret children. Underneath it, I found the vasectomy records. And then, something I didn't expect. A letter. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic. It was cautious. Nolan had written that he felt uncomfortable with how often. Paige joked about what if Luca was yours. He wrote that he trusted me completely. But something about her behavior felt off. He told me if anything ever seemed strange to check the paperwork carefully. I sat on the floor that night and cried. Not from betrayal. From relief. He saw it too. I hired Janet Sorrento, calm, precise, surgical. After reviewing the fake will Paige distributed, Janet didn't react emotionally. She leaned back in her chair and said, "If she files this in probate court, she commits a felony." I blinked. "So we wait?" I asked. Janet smiled slightly. "We wait." And Paige did exactly what we hoped. She filed it. That was mistake number 1. Janet moved quickly. The notary whose stamp appeared on the fake will signed a sworn affidavit confirming she never knew Nolan's signature. A forensic handwriting expert determined the signature. was copied from older documents. Clean. Clinical. Devastating. Meanwhile, my friend Jolene, who has a talent for finding things people wish stayed hidden, did some digging of her own. She discovered Luca's biological father, a married construction foreman named Trent Mosley. And, unlike Nolan, Trent had very recent paternity patterns that matched time. That was mistake number 2. The probate hearing was quiet. No balloons. No applause. Just wood benches and fluorescent lights. Paige walked in, confident. She even gave me a sympathetic look, like she'd already won. Janet stood when it was our turn. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She presented the original will, then the medical records, then the affidavit from the notary, then the forensic report. Each document landed like a brick. Paige's face changed slowly. First, confusion, then heat, then something close to panic. When Janet mentioned the potential criminal implications of submitting forged documents, the room shifted. And when she introduced evidence identifying Luca's actual father, Paige's composure shattered. The judge didn't yell. He didn't need to. He dismissed her claim and referred the matter for criminal investigation. Just like that, it was over. Charges were filed. Trent Mosley's wife filed for divorce within weeks of the paternity confirmation. Rhonda didn't call me for a while. Grief had made her desperate for a grandchild. I understand that now, but desperation doesn't justify betrayal. The house stayed mine. The Jeep stayed in the driveway. And the silence that once felt suffocating finally felt peaceful. The most satisfying moment wasn't the judge's ruling. It wasn't the charges. It wasn't even Paige's expression when the evidence dismantled her story. It was the drive home, windows down, sunlight hitting the dashboard. For the first time since Nolan's death, I didn't feel like prey. I felt steady. She thought grief made me weak. She thought silence meant ignorance. She thought emotion would overpower evidence. She underestimated the widow who understood paperwork. And that was her biggest mistake. Loss exposes people. Some step forward with loyalty. Others step forward with ambition. I learned that financial planning matters. Documentation matters. Self-reliance matters. But most of all, patience is powerful. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't confrontation. It's waiting for the truth to speak for itself. If this story gave you that quiet, satisfying feeling of justice being served, hit that like button. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my position? And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that prove one thing: underestimate the wrong person, and you'll regret it.